course, when you talk about agriculture, you are talking about food security. Because if you are able to feed your citizens, then you know their productivity in so many other fronts is guaranteed. And just like they say, a hungry man is an angry man. So I think the president understands all of this. But then, what are the challenges of Nigerian agriculture? The basic is low productivity of our farms and farmers generally. A situation where we have varieties that you can plant, and when you plant, you'll be able to get maybe 5 tons, 6 tons. You will notice that farmers are grappling with half of that. So, based on experts' knowledge, it's clear, and everybody knows that one of the key drivers of your productivity will be how you work, the good agricultural practices. Now, in looking at that, that is where you talk about mechanization. Mechanization here means using mechanical devices that have this horsepower capacity to do some of these things that our farmers are used to doing using their manual power. And that is why we talk about the drudgery of agricultural operations in Nigeria, where you are using hoe and cutlass, and that is, to many people now, that is demeaning. It gives the picture of a poor, wretched person, and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, in countries that are doing very well in agriculture, it is the mechanization rate that is used as a basis to gauge how your farm operations are either modern or still living in the past. And I think in the case of Nigeria, record has shown what we have as our mechanization rate is about 0.27 horsepower per hectare. And that is low even by African average. Because even by African average, at least it should be 1.5 or thereabout. And when you talk about the global average, you should be talking about 2.5. And I think with what the president has packaged as mechanization programs, because this one is the Renewed Hope Mechanization Program, the Belarus component. Then we also have the John Deere component, and then we have the Green Imperative Project, and then we also have the Greener Hope Productivity Program. Now, all of these are mechanization programs designed to definitely frontally attack our capacity to increase this, horsepower available per hectare. Now, what we have seen from all of this is this program is the first now that has been delivered, and it has 2,000, tractors of different, what did they call it, make.
And the tractors are in town?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. That's what the president just launched. And you can go to the National Agricultural Seed Council complex and see them. Those ones are, because that is the space that is available. You can see everywhere is taken over by, what did they call it? Some are still there that are going to also be assembled because the space is not enough. But the target is 2,000 and they are all delivered. The other aspect is the plow. There are plow, there are harrows, and then there are also ridges. The plows and the what did they call it, harrow are 2,000 units, while the ridges are 1,000 units. Okay. And we also have the what did they we also have the planters and then the harvesters. Now, what is specifically special about this is the fact that the president is concerned is not just to go and bring tractors and just, you just dump it and then no. He really wants these things to help our agriculture, because food security can only be guaranteed when you are able to produce food year on year. And as a policy, we are now on all year round farming. Nigeria is no longer on dry season farming, rainy season farming. No, it's now all year round farming, and that is what we are promoting now, because we believe from the southern part to the northern part we have the capacity to do all year round farming, and that is what the government is promoting. And to do that, it means you need mechanization to support farmers' operation. Okay. And what we have here, honestly, like anyone can attest, if you know the history of our agriculture, no one single government has been able to achieve this since our independence, to the best of my knowledge.
Well, it's a commendable, actually, effort by the government, noting that the president is very keen at ensuring that no Nigeria goes to bed hungry. Now, how will this mechanization actually promote food security and economic development in the country?
All right. Like I said, if you look at our farm operations, I'll give you some scenarios where you are able to, if farmers can access these facilities or this equipment to be able to prepare their land. And the program itself is designed such that we have 12 mobile maintenance services equipment. There are vehicles that are going to be for the purpose of maintenance all over the country, and they'll be deployed according to the space and how these tractors are also being deployed. Now, it will help farmers to prepare their land based on the standard good agricultural practice, because the operators are going to be properly trained in terms of how to do this, and these equipments are good enough, and so they'll be able to do the work based on the standard that is supposed to be done. And the success of a farmer lies in how well he prepares the land, because that's where you are going to plant. And if the land is well prepared with good, based on the good agricultural practices, then farmers will be able to plant at the time they're supposed to plant. You can imagine if it would take maybe 10 days for a farmer using his manual labor to get his farm ready, and the rains are coming. First, you want to start planting, immediately those areas he has finished, which means he will be having an uneven planting, regime in his farm. But with mechanization, the farmer will be able to clear his land properly, do all the necessary preparations, and when it's time to plant, and there are mechanized planting devices, he uses that to also plant. The depth of planting is guaranteed, the spacing is guaranteed, and so at the end of the day, when it is time for him to do the spraying and everything, and all of these things are done properly, honestly, the productivity in terms of the yield per hectare of the farmer is better guaranteed. Now, you also agree with me that, for example, a farmer that has 10, 20, 30 hectares of land, by the time it's time for harvesting, it takes time to harvest. In the process, we've seen situations where farmers have had to lose the crops because they couldn't finish harvesting and the rains are back. So that is what mechanization does. And we believe that if we get it right, we have very huge potential in this country. Our agricultural land is 93 million hectares, of which only 34 million hectares are currently being operated. So we're not even, that is about 48%, we're not even up to 50% of our capacity. So we still have a lot.
Have you put in place proper measures to ensure that these farmers, especially local farmers, have access to these tractors?
Well, the program, there are the mechanism for deploying these things are this. First, we've also recognized, we have to look at our institutions, the universities, the research institutes that do this work. They will also get component of this so that they can enhance, because, for example, for seed production, the research institutes are supposed to produce seed. So they will be given components to enable them properly have seed production. Because, again, here, the president has said, plant the right seed, feed an entire nation. And that is apt, because no matter how well you also prepare the land, if you don't have the right seed to plant, it's as if you've done nothing. So we are looking at all of this particular component. Then we're also looking at individuals with large farms that would like to, subscribe to, the equipment. There's also provision for that. And farmers as cooperatives, as farmers group, will also be encouraged to have access. And then there is linkage to financing, the Bank of Agriculture, the Jais Bank, and others, to ensure that by the time farmers are going to key into having this equipment, they should be able to pay with less, burden of high interest. And we are looking at 0 to 5 years repayment, which means 0 if you have outright, you want to buy outright, yes, there is that provision. But for those who will take the longer route, of course, arrangements are also being made with these financial institutions. We don't believe the president is upbeat about how farmers will definitely benefit from this. And that's what we're looking at. At the end of the day, if these things are deployed, those who are going to operate it will be well trained, because these are very high caliber, equipment, very modern, and they are very
because
sturdy.
I was going to ask, do they have the requisite knowledge or the capacity to handle this?
They are simple. They are simple equipment, but still there will be that training. It's part of the package.
Of course,
training
because
is part of the
it's
package.
not something they are already used to.
It's coming on board now. Even if you have driven other tractors, for this particular one, there will be specific training package, and that is already on ground. It's ready for
Let's talk about the choice of a service provider model for this. What structures are in place to ensure that there is, efficiency and rural inclusiveness?
Yes, that is also part of the arrangement. I was still giving you different, provisions in terms of how this deployment is going to take place. Service providers are also part of it, and here we're looking at youth coming together to, take up this challenge, because we are looking at having agricultural mechanization service centers in each of the 774 local government areas. Now, if this happens, it means young Nigerians will be encouraged. They will have units that will make them to be economical in terms of managing it, and they will all be trained in terms of this service provision, because a service provider is supposed to have the capacity and the competency and the skills to be able to do what these equipments will do for the farm. And the farmer will just subscribe to that and he gets the service. So we are aware of that, and it's part of the package. And like I said, what is important here is that there are also spare parts.
Okay.
I was going to get
spare
there.
parts for each of these equipment
to be maintained.
Have been supplied, yes. And then based on the, remember it's a nation-to-nation bilateral partnership. And so that partnership will guarantee that training will continue, and overall, in the long run, provision will be made for assembly plant and even continuous production in country. So it's a long, immediate to short term to medium term. There are all objectives as far as this mechanization scheme is concerned.
All right, okay. We just want to remind our viewers that you can also participate in this conversation by sending us messages, your questions via the number on your screen. Send SMS or send WhatsApp to us. The Minister of State for Agriculture and Food Production will respond to your questions. Now, let's. I just want to find out, how can investors, are investors being attracted, to actually support this agricultural mechanization? How are you doing that?
Well, I would say investors.
Or is it only government that is in it?
No, let me say this. There are a lot of private sector interest in agriculture in Nigeria. And you agree with me that because of the interest government has shown now, you will see that not just the federal government, state governments are also now looking at agriculture, and they are also looking at the PPP model, public-private partnership.
Okay.
And for example, Niger State, the former governor, Mohamed Umar Bago, has brought in a model. And that is why you saw him unveiling 1,000 tractors, because he has created a special purpose vehicle called Niger Foods. Niger Foods has government enablement with an equity, but the controlling equity is private sector. So these are models, and these are all based on the inspiration by the president that, look, we need to feed our country. We need our citizens to be able to have food. And it's not just talking about food security. The president is talking about food sovereignty. which means we should be able to control our own food system by producing what we consume and consuming what we produce. And so it's a whole new philosophy. And I think because the president is the champion, state governments are also being inspired. Some of them working together with the private sector, while some of them are creating the enabling environment for private sector participation. For example, in the same Niger State, there is, what do they call it, this private group that are into real estate, but they've now gone into agriculture. And they are massively investing in Gushishi local government, what do they call this, brains and hammers.
Okay.
So you can see a whole new thing is coming on board. And there are many other private sectors. For example, I know there is a young lady, I've forgotten the name now, but they are there in between Ogun and Lagos State. They are working and they are also doing some elements of mechanization. So I think what is important is that the president has created a new vision. And when you are able to provide leadership for a vision, you get people coming in. And different people are now taking specific interest. And I think as at the last count, between the 36 state governments and FCT, different states have procured tractors of different, horsepower specification, all to support their own agricultural production. Niger State has 1,000. Jigawa State, for example, is 3,000. Cross River State, what we saw is 108. And different, Kaduna, Kwara, all of them.
But beyond all of this, Honorable Minister, you've talked about the mechanization, but you've also said that we are not farming up to 50% of agricultural, arable land available to us. So what is the government doing to encourage more people to go into farming? For instance, if I want to farm, for instance, are you going to say, okay, there's land for you? Do you give land just to encourage people to farm, or you have to, go and buy the land and then be able to farm?
Well, you see, it's a two-pronged thing. You need to understand because this is a federation, and land is in the state.
Yeah.
And the various state governments, like I've told you, are having schemes that are attracting private sector. And if a private sector is interested in farming, is to approach the state. And the states right now, because I know in terms of the interface we have at the National Economic Council, where my brother Senator Abakari attends almost every time this council meeting holds, for us to give our own insight and to also get the insight of the state governors. The state governors are also taking these things very seriously. And that's why I cited the example of Niger State for you. The private sector that are there, they are getting land from the state government. That's part of the equity contribution of the state. Now, in Jigawa State, the same thing. In the wheat production, we're having private sectors are all there, having different categories of farm sizes. We know of about 3 different farm groups that are having 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 hectares of land. So it's all about creating the enabling environment. And I think this is what I talk about, the vision of the president, showing that yes, government is truly interested in this, and it's also going to give all necessary support for this. But for private sector, there are a lot of things they look at beyond even the land. And that's why as a ministry, for example, we are currently working on looking at what we call the ease of doing agriculture and agribusiness in Nigeria. That work is ongoing currently by the ministry. We are also looking at the laws, that agricultural laws, with a view to reviewing them. I think we just flagged this off about 2 months ago. The work has started, but we did a stakeholder validation to look at what is being done. Now, all of this is designed to support the private sector to see that agriculture is the next real thing. And remember also, we have this special agro-processing zone, which all the state governments are keen into. Now, the model here is that you must have an off-taker that is a private sector. So you can see there is quite a lot of latitude and areas where we are providing. Meanwhile, you remember for the wheat program, we are working with the, what do they call it? What do they call this group that, food, what's that called? I've forgotten the name of the company.
Okay.
But, you know, we are working with them in terms of the wheat production. So what I just want to say here is that if government creates the enabling environment, the private sector knows how to take opportunities.
Okay.
And the opportunities are now there. Meanwhile, you talk about the 34,000, you know, for 34 million hectares I talked about. What is the level of mechanization in this? That's where the 0.27 mechanization rate is. And that's why it's not even, you know, doing enough. So this mechanization is designed to go into the current production system. But like I said, we have 4 mechanization schemes. By the time those other ones come on board, definitely the latitude for growth exists. And remember, agriculture is to help us achieve diversification, which means we need to produce what we consume, but also we need to target where we have the competitive and comparative advantage to produce for export, so that we can have other sources of foreign exchange earning. And you see, right now, I know, for example, when the president attended the Saudi, summit, there was a lot of, engagement, and the Saudi investors have come into Nigeria. They've signified interest in soybeans production, for example. And so we have created a platform, private sector driven, and they are working on how to make soybeans one of the major commodities that we can produce and also export. So there's quite a lot happening.
All right. Okay, Honorable Minister, we have some responses from some of our viewers, which I would like you to probably respond to. This one says, this from Muhammad Awal Musa Afamai from Kano. It says, good morning, Honorable Minister. Good morning, presenters. I salute this administration for developing this great initiative. Then this one is from Dajuma from Taraba. It says, good morning. Please, when will Nigeria stop the importation of husk rice, which has been to the detriment of our local farmers? And this from Ononuju from Abuja. It said, Nigerian farmers appreciate the tractors, but security and protection of the crops when planted is also very important. Government should take note of that. And this one says, this one is from David, King David from Rivers State. Which offers can farmers in private sector liaise with in Rivers State for access to seedlings and other things to boost production? Probably you respond to those comments and questions before Victor will read his own.
All right. Thank you very much. I think for the last question, King David from Rivers.
Yeah, Rivers.
We have a field office in the Federal Secretariat of Rivers State.
Okay.
You should go there and contact the state coordinator of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. And definitely he will get further information and guiding. Then for the issue of security, yes, it's also very important. And I want to say that the president realizes this, and that is why a lot of work is ongoing. Definitely the security situation when this government took over is not the same today. Yes, I agree also there are challenges of these flashes of cases here and there, but we must also commend our security agencies for the work they are doing. And I think the president has also given them more marching orders, and I think they are brazen up and they are doing their best. There are successes here and there, and I think one that comes to mind in particular is the Birnin-Gwari axis that was impassable and no work was nothing. You can't even go through there. Today, it's a production site. The markets are open, farmers are producing. And there are other places, even in Niger State, where we do have serious chemistries here and there. There are, some improvements. But we agree these are not issues that have gone away. And that's why the president is continuously charging the security agents to also step up and do what they can to ensure that the farms are secure. Farmers can also go to, to produce, because we know it's a key, what do they call it, a component of our production system. And I think to also complement these difficulties that we have seen, we are currently looking at institutions and also our agencies that have land. And that's why even in talking about the tractor in the, what they call the formula of what we're going to, we told you Universities of Agricultural Research Institutes will also get components, because we want them to partake in ensuring that the lands available to them, if they are supposed to produce for the purpose of demonstration, then let them produce. Because whatever is produced, no matter how little, will go a long way in contributing to availability of food, or preventing those who would have otherwise gone to market will have their own portion. Because usually when you see food prices, it's a function of demand and supply. And that's why we are ramping up production. And like I said, as part of the strategy for ramping up production, what we have said is that let's go for all year round production system, which means we are looking at irrigation as another very major component. And I think we have different schemes that we are looking at now to develop so that we can have irrigation facilities, especially the ones that will be based on renewable energy, because the cost of irrigating farms also, we know, is high. So all of these things that the questions being asked are issues that we know and we are working very hard upon. One other thing I would like to say here is that, for example, the cooperative sector, we know the farm cooperatives, and the president has given us a marching order on that, and we are working very hard also on that. And the narrative is changing for the cooperative sector, because we believe if you have very strong cooperatives, the economy of scale, like this, equipment, a cooperative society can now take 2, 3, 4, and their members can have access to the services in terms of service, provider that you talked about earlier. So we are leaving no stone unturned, because we know this is a renewed hope government under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and he's definitely upbeat about ensuring that we deliver on that mandate.
What about the stoppage of importation of husk rice?
Yes, you see, the most of the issues, if government has given a policy, then smugglers also have their own, things they do. But as far as government is concerned, if we increase production and we have volume and our processors are able to process, I think the situation will take care of itself naturally. And that is what government is working hard to do. We are producing for rice, is irrigation. Under the National Agricultural Growth Scheme program, we are promoting rice both for the dry season and for the rainy season. And right now we are also having a second phase of that program, which is supported by the Japanese, facility. So I think we are working very hard to make sure that these things happen.
I would like you at some point to speak to the use of technology, if government is considering that, because technology is both the present and the future. But let's take these messages first, and then you can address all of them. From Adebamiru Adeyinka from Kuchigoro, Abuja, says, good morning, Honorable Minister. How can a poor man and poor young man in the village benefit from this mechanization that has no capital strength? Similar to what I asked earlier. And from Daniel Morris from Lagos, good morning. Please, when will you stop the importation of husk rice, which has been to the detriment of our local farmers? I think he already took it. That's from Danjuma in Lagos. And then it's great to plan to go into mechanized farming. Security of farmers should also be improved. He's Morris from Lagos. And from Akeju Olagbaju, former director, he said the Honorable Minister has spoken well. And this time around, the program must succeed, and skilled operators must be trained, and every tractor must be tracked. And from John Ade, Honorable Minister, please note that the FCT is naturally a cashew zone. What are you doing to replace all the cashew trees that are cut down daily for real estate development? That's John Ade. From this one, it reads, I want to ask the Honorable Minister for Agriculture, the people that will be well trained with regards to the new agricultural machines, will the trainee be employed by the local government? And from Ogunshake Paul Babafemi, we appreciate the present administration let there be Farmers Club to enable individuals benefit from the scheme. And finally, good morning, Nigeria. I would like to advise the Honorable Minister to also engage civil servants. That's also from Danjuma in Taraba State.
Thank you very much. Quite a number of questions. And I think one of the things I would like to say here is this. You know, in terms of creating inclusivity, the renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is clear that inclusivity should be the watchword of all our programs and programming. And that's why we have to have a bouquet of options in terms of providing this implementation strategy. Now, for the civil servant, for example, if you are a farmer, they have cooperatives. And that's why we are saying that we're trying to revamp and reform the cooperative sector to give it more bite, to enable them get more power in terms of their operational strategy, because the cooperative sector is really a very veritable tool for delivering on some of these things. And it is part of Mr. President's agenda. Now, what we are looking at is, even for the young man from one of the local government, is it Kuje you talked about?
Yes.
Who asked how does he, it's all about promoting cooperative. When different people with low capacity come together, they have an enhanced capacity, and they can, through their cooperative, now have subscription either to another maybe higher cooperative society that will have the capacity to maybe procure these things. What is important is for the service to be rendered, because most of the smallholder farmers do not have the farm holding that will require you to buy a tractor. It is those that have large farms that will be able to now procure one of the tractors, and the tractor can do all the work for them, because the tractors are designed to have mounted trailers and all the other implements that they will use for the farm operation. So for those who are civil servants, I will encourage them to ensure that they approach their cooperative societies, because they are one of the options where the economy of scale will be derived from. If a cooperative society have 1, 2, 3, and then you are a member, then you can get the service of the available implement or tractor that is with that. For those who have capacity, like I said, who have big farm, because we also have to advise you. If you know you don't have big farm, why do you need a tractor? In terms of your productivity, in terms of your profitability, you are not going to be profitable, except if you are going to also provide service to other people. So which one are you going to do? So I think we need to look at that. Then in terms of the, what did they call it, those to be trained, it's going to be based on agribusiness entrepreneurship, because those service providers are going to be entities. They are going to be private sector entities. It's not going to be government. The whole of this thing is just government enabling, but it's going to also be private sector driven.
Yeah.
This is the way to ensure that both the servicing, maintenance, and all these other things are done properly. Now, like I said, we're going to have agricultural mechanization service centers all over the country. The idea here is to have young Nigerians that will be packaged, encouraged to put themselves together to operate these mechanization service centers. They will be able to maintain their tractors, including even have the capacity to do it for other people who are having tractors from other sources.
Okay.
You understand? But most importantly, drive these tractors to farmers' field to be able to provide the services. Now, these equipments are modern equipment. You talk about tracking. Yes, there is provision
so that
for
they don't, we don't see them and then they disappear.
And when you are supposed to do certain things, the machines are, what do they call the package to be able to even tell you that you are due for servicing. And the way, based on what we are told, the provision for even not starting because you are supposed to service is there. That way, it's not just about having these tractors. The manufacturers are also interested in the performance of the tractor, because when the tractor is performing very well, then the capacity is expanded and more can be, requested from them. So I think there is a lot that is being packaged in terms of ensuring that this time around it's not business as usual.
It is business unusual. But somebody spoke about trees that are being cut down. You know, infrastructure development and agriculture are in conflict.
No. That is the talking about the FCT.
Particularly, but other parts of the country.
Yes, we know. But remember that if you are doing what we call regenerative agriculture, which is also another program that the ministry is promoting. We've talked about soil health scheme, for example. We are looking at all of those things. And, you know, it's all about having the right skill set of people who know how to do farming. And if they know how to do farming, then remember plants are supposed to be used as what? Hedges to prevent sheet erosion and the likes. So we are looking at all of these things, and for effect, unfortunately, yes, agriculture may be seen as a victim, but agriculture is also a promoter.
Okay, we have some other questions here. This one says, it gladdens, this from Abba Uche, Innocent from Makati. It says, it gladdens my heart seeing this tractor, but my question is, what are the distribution ratio to various states? How do you distribute it to the various states?
Well,
then this one, okay, let me just take the others so that you can just respond to all of them. This one says, good morning, Honorable Minister. I'm Emmanuel from Akwa Ibom State. I have an idea to grow and I have a plot of land to cultivate, but I don't have money. How can government help me? That's Emmanuel Ekanem. This Honorable Minister, I thank Mr. President for the Renew Hope Agriculture. My concern is the distribution of the equipment. That is asking how the equipment will be distributed, among states. This one says, this one is from Niger Kotangura. It said, good morning, Minister. I've been a farmer, but all these government initiatives, we women are left behind. So how do you, we're talking about inclusivity now.
Yeah.
So how do you include the women, they are crying out now. So what role can extension services play in promoting agricultural mechanism in Nigeria?
Well, thank you very much. Again, thank all our viewers for this question. It signifies interest, and that is what we want, because the more our citizens are interested in what we're doing, the more questions are asked, and the more we are also tasked to provide solutions and to look at issues, whether we have looked at them or we have not looked at them. So the first thing I would like to say is that for participation, in terms of the ratio, this is being worked out. It's not finalized yet.
Okay.
But my take is this. The president has said this is all over the country. And definitely we have to make sure it's all over the country. Okay. That's number one. Number two, in terms of the models which I've talked about, there are farmer organizations or farmer associations, there are cooperatives, and there are individual farmers, private sector, big farmers, who would like to subscribe, because this is going to be giving some rebate. There will be some support. It's not going to be at the cost price. This is to support the fact that this thing should be all over the place. And for those that do not have resources, this is why we are now saying that the instruments and mechanisms available is for them to join hands and form cooperative societies.
Okay.
It's much easier to have that collectives coming together to put their little effort together to become a bigger effort. And I think those that are asking this question, like the guy who said he wants to farm, he wants to, let him join. There are a lot of cooperative societies all over. We are currently taking stock of the cooperative societies all over the state. We are working with them as part of the reform and revamp of the cooperative sector. So if they can do that, it will enable them to quickly have access. Now, the other aspect is that I think someone was asking about inclusivity of women.
Yes.
For example, we are promoting, and that is why we have the Nigerian, Nigerian Women in Agribusiness Cooperative Society, NWAP. They've just come on board. They are being enabled and empowered by the ministry. In fact, they are the ones that have come to us for us to give them, and they are all over the state now, working to ensure that this happens. And this particular platform will be one of the platforms, I believe, based on the good work they are already doing, and some others, because even in WABD, the Nigerian Women Agricultural Progressive Development Initiative, they are also having, such kind of, inroads where they are promoting, women involvement in agriculture. So those that have already created platforms and they are veritable and they are doing very well, they will be part of those who will benefit from all of this to make sure that women are not left behind in terms of the inclusivity. Because like I said here again, the president got it right. His renewed hope agenda clearly said inclusivity.
So what's the role of the extension services in all this?
For the extension service, remember we talked about good agricultural practice. So for this good agricultural practice to happen, extension agents will also be keyed in to what we are doing as a mechanization. And earlier in the day, if you remember, we have launched a platform that is currently being developed. We are building it up. We've already, introduced it. That is the National Electronic Extension Platform, the NIP.
Okay.
So it's currently being built because we have extension agents all over the federation. So that directory we are currently uploading, so that if farmer wants to have further information on certain things, he knows which extension agent is close to him. So you can see it's a lot of activities being put together. To build a system that has been a bit underperforming to a highly performing one requires a lot of changes, a lot of transformative activities. And that is what we are doing.
All right, Honorable Minister, we have just a minute before you go. As part of your closing remarks, somebody talked about when you are going to bring price control to bear on agricultural produce, so as to make the people a bit more comfortable. Perhaps in 30 seconds?
Yes, like I said, here again, there is a current work that is being done as directed by Mr. President to look at what we call price stabilization mechanism. And the price stabilization mechanism is one that helps countries to put in place a process that will check the fluctuation in food prices. And I think by the time that is fully done, we don't want to just come out and say anything. We want something that will work. And that is why it's not something we just come out and talk anyhow. It's something that is based on knowledge. We've done so many preliminary work, but we are yet to fully validate it. And when we fully validate it, it will be placed before Mr. President, because he's been very, very particular about this. Anytime he talks, he will ask you, how will this affect our citizens? How will this affect Nigerian farmers? And I think because of that, we need to do the homework to ensure price stabilization mechanism is something you need to put in place, where you have the measure, where you'll be able to say, okay, some people with bad behaviors are trying to get the price to go up, then you have a counter to counterbalance whatever they are doing.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for counterbalancing everything and making sure that everything works out well. Yes. Wish you all the best in this efforts at ensuring food security for the country. Honorable Minister of State Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Aliyu Sabi Abdullahi, thank you so much for coming on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
We'll now take a break. After the break, we have the second discussion, which is on mobilizing women, mobilization of women. So stay tuned.
Your currency unit is the Naira, while the minor unit is the Kobo. They are both in notes and coins. The Naira is more than just a medium of exchange. It bears the images of our heroes. So, stop abusing the Naira. It is a criminal offense to spray the Naira at events. Stop stepping on the Naira. It's not your enemy. Do not squeeze, ruffle, or write on the Naira. Handling the Naira with dirty or oily hands can deface the Naira. Love the Naira as you love yourself. Be a real Nigerian. Do not abuse the Naira.
The business environment, to be honest with you, has been extremely hard on most Nigerian women's businesses, and of course harsh for a number of reasons. There is no way you would increase or move subsidy and increase the price of fuel that it doesn't have the counter effect It has been very challenging for so many women. I know that a lot of them have cried in one way or the other to us to find ways of intervening, but that is not to say that it is all doom and gloom. We will still have a few percentage of women that are thriving in this economy, but we hope that we'll be able to get a larger percentage. One of the things I've seen with even our local purchases now is that people are buying more made in Nigerian options of food, of clothing, and so on and so forth than the imported. So that again is helping some of our industries thrive. Surprisingly, the telecommunications is still doing well, and the reason is very simple. A lot of people are going for online options of skills in terms of training, communications, even remote working. And so you will see that people that provide services around those areas also thrive. But I think at the end of the day, it's about partnerships, collaboration, and influencing power from especially the private sector and even the public sector. But we really need the public sector to drive a number of things, especially policies, because the public sector has the national spread above even whatever we can do in our own small way. What has happened over the years is that even the government, for example, is being pulled from different angles by all these stakeholders. We need to harness ourselves to have strategic focus areas, and we should all be moving in the same direction, not using a competitive approach, but a collaborative approach. Secondly, in collaboration, we need to move with large clusters of decision makers. Instead of, the process of reaching out to individuals is painstakingly long and it takes time. And so we need to engage these stakeholders on a larger platform. I think it's very important to identify where you can get help in your own little way. And one of the things I've realized is that when you operate in silo, it is difficult for you to lift yourself out of the situation. Identify ways you can do what you are doing in a simpler way. And if what you are doing is no more profitable, why not find out what can you do in the meantime that will help you? You need to think outside the box and then connect. What you can do is also identify people and become a cluster to provide a service that ordinarily you cannot do alone.
All right, we thank you very much for staying with us. And we are getting into our second conversation, which is on breaking barriers, building futures, the power of women's mobilization in Nigeria. And today we are taking a closer look at the collective efforts of women's rights organizations and advocacy groups driving social and political change in Nigeria.
That's true, Victor. From grassroots campaigns to high-level advocacy, we're exploring the initiatives that are empowering women and promoting inclusive governance.
So we invite you to join us as we highlight the stories of women who are making a difference and examine the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead for women empowerment in Nigeria. I'm now being joined for this conversation by Nneka Acholonu Ebuna, who is a program coordinator for Let's Help Humanitarian Foundation. A pleasure to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Also joining us on the program is Anole Aniebo. She's the development professional, gender specialist, and humanitarian advocate. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right.
If I may begin with Nneka here, is when we talk about empowerment of women, it seems like something abstract. But for you, in real terms, when we talk about empowerment, is it in the homes? Is it in the marketplace? Is it in the offices? Or wherever we find ourselves? What does this really mean?
Thank you for that question, because the word empowerment has become like a cliche, and it's used carelessly sometimes, and some people have a misconception about what empowerment is all about. But simply put, empowerment is giving a woman or a girl or anybody at all the full opportunity to manifest their full potentials, whether it's at home, in the public space, in any affairs at all.
More like an enabling environment?
Yeah, providing, that's also part of it, bringing in an enabling environment where the person can function optimally to their full potentials, then depending on the areas or the sectors the person belongs to. Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at how can women's rights organization and advocacy groups, work together to drive, social and political change. Where we've noticed that in most cases, women don't actually support, each other. Yeah, we've noticed. I mean, we've observed even during elections, when women, come out for elective positions, you can count the number of votes that they get, and most times, most of the people that come out for voting are women. So what's the problem? What's the challenge?
It's interesting that you use that example, but we need to lose that women don't support women narrative. It's so old. It's really so old, I must say that. But to your question, in collaboration is quite key and strong. But we have to first applaud the many, civil societies, women rights organizations that are doing a lot of work. There's how society sort of minimizes the great work that a lot of women are doing and expands on the work that they think women are not doing. A lot of women are collaborating so much so across the spaces, and we're still doing that. That is why one of the reasons that we're here today. What we need to see more of, if you wanted to, look at the example of voting system, that's a different category in its own, because women do come out to vote for everybody. But you have to ask a question, who is on the ballot? When you say women are not voting for people, you have to really ask, who are the people who are on the ballot anyway? They will only vote who is on the ballot, right?
Yeah.
And you also have to understand that long before now, there's been a discrimination about how many women are supposed to be on the ballot to vote anyway. So what do you want the women to come out to vote to do? They can't manufacture women and put on there. So there has to be strong collaboration, and we're doing that. But moving forward, I have to agree with you. There's still space for improvement. We still need to all still come together and see that when a woman is actively representing another woman and representing their issues, we're all, in the room, we're all being supported. So I will push for more support, but is there advocacy going on, and are we all working together? Absolutely we are, but there's room for improvement.
All right, thank you very much. And let me get back to Nneka. Now, we've seen various government and NGO programs aimed at empowering women in the terms that we know in Nigeria. But in your view, what's actually working, and where are we? What can be improved, by the way?
Well, a lot is working, because if you check from where we are coming from, since 1999, there's been some improvements, and I know the very little gains are not being celebrated enough, but then there's been some improvements. Women were told that they are speaking to themselves, they are not collaborating enough, we should bring other actors in the room, involve this person or that person, and we're doing all that, and I mean the women groups. But by the end of the day, you still find out that there is still some pushback.
You say you're doing all that. How are you doing it? How are you going about it?
There's a lot of advocacy. We learn from previous mistakes, previous mistakes. We take the lessons, we come back, we review where we've gone wrong, what we've done wrong, and how we can improve as women groups. And we bring all these considerations back to the table and involve more people, re-strategize. But by the end of the day, you still find out that we are still at point zero. I don't know if you know that book called Women at Point Zero. We're still at point zero. We're still back to the drawing board. So it's like, what else do women need to do? What is it that we need to say that we haven't already said? So that's the situation we find ourselves.
You're not frustrated, I hope.
No, I'm not frustrated, but it's also interesting.
All right. Okay. Annalie, let's look at the societal and cultural barriers that actually, limits women potential. How do you begin to break that?
Now, that is a question that we all have to keep asking everyone. You see, social norms is thriving in our society. It exists to the very, very top of echelons everywhere social norms exist. Boys and girls are raised differently. We cannot agree that. Now that transcends into the position of leadership that you see today. When boys are raised, they are raised to think leadership. If I ask you now, sir, to close your eyes as an experiment, and I ask you to think about who a leader is, what image will come into your mind, sir, and you, sir?
Human being. A human being will pop up.
You're trying to be
not an animal.
You're trying to be technical about it. A human being. What kind of human being, sir?
Well, it may have coiled hair, but it may be a man or woman.
Fair enough. But the usual answer based on research is that everybody thinks he's a man. Because all our mindset, we've been raised to think that he's a man. Nothing absolutely wrong with that. But that's to tell you that the challenge that we're all facing. You talked about breaking down barriers. So how do we now begin to tell girls and even boys that when you reimagine, you can also see a girl in a position of leadership? That is part of the engineering that we now need to re-engineer. We need to now begin to re-engineer in a positive way. So nobody is trying to battle or fight anybody to take anything. It's to say, just like she's correctly said initially, we can all occupy the space. The sky is big enough for all of us, right? But the engineering that we've already had, the mindset, the imbibing, the culture that how we've raised boys and girls, do not give all of us equal opportunity. And I dare say, sir, that even boys and men are facing pressure. Because the way you've raised the boys to feel like they're the only ones that can provide, now the highest number of suicide rates are boys and men. You raise boys not to talk and speak and all of that issue is happening. It's still the same thing. So imagine if it is that you raise girls and boys differently, give them an equity mindset, challenge their thinking, and we're all here to support each other. How do you think we're all going to be living? So the culture, and I have to speak about religious platforms as well, sir, because that's where I'm a Christian. I'll talk from a Christian background, and I'm an Anglican, and I love my church. However, the transition of education that we're getting from the religious pulpits is still subverting girls and women to a certain degree. But now that it's evolving, I can only speak for my church and Matthew's Anglican Church, that the thinking is evolving, but that's another platform to challenge it. Because when you say a woman is this, that, and a third, you transition her to think like that. And the society applauds the women who actualize and demonstrate such attitudes. And then they begin to police other women to demonstrate such attitudes. Do you see what I mean? It's a long technical conversation, more than 30 minutes to end. But we need to keep talking about it. We need to honestly go back to the root causes and be honest with ourselves. First of all, do you really want women to be in leadership roles? Are you raising your girl child differently? And are you raising your boy child to know that the girl child can also be a leader differently? And how is that going to translate? Because it can. We all need to do that to help each other.
By the way, the opportunities available to women, how much are they taking advantage of it? I give you basic examples. International Women's Day, you don't have for the men, that's by the way.
We do.
You have Mother's Day, multiple Mother's Day. Now, these are days essentially set aside for women, to promote women, to support women, just pro-women. Would you say that women are taking advantage enough of this? What about mentorship?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely 100%, which is why I said initially that some media organizations, some conversations minimize the impact of women.
How?
Sir, in the sense of you're having a conversation about how women are able to do things, you only speak up to women in this kind of show today. On International Women's Day, you invite a woman to come. When you're having political conversations, you rarely invite women. When you're having conversations about the nation, you rarely invite women.
Here.
But what conversation are we having? We have women.
That's what I'm saying. But this is a show where it should be frequent. Now, it's a great thing. I'm not saying it's not a great thing. What we're talking about here is how we can expand the reach, right? You can agree with me that we need to do more. We're talking about doing more, right?
And that's why I asked if you are doing enough with what you have. You came from a religious background. You know the story about, those who maximize the potential that they have, getting more. And that's what I'm looking at. You could do more with what you have, can't you?
So I would like to change your narrative to say that it's not about doing more with what you have. We are giving little, and we're doing more with the little that we were given. We imagine if we're giving more space to do more, sir. In the religious sect, we are giving positions to do prayer. You pray for this, pray for that, pray for this. And guess what? The men only have one time to pray or one coalition or collaboration to do things. But again, let's just go back to society. It's not you or I. It's about the way society has raised you and I. It's a social normative thing that this is how it should be. But what we're talking about now is we need to change and challenge the narrative for all of us to see better, more potential. So if I look at your point, sir, about doing enough, we are doing much more with the little that we're given. If it is that you expand the space, for example, don't do meetings at night. For example, while we're here, 35% affirmative action, please implement it, right? Imagine what would happen. That's where I want the conversation to lead to, sir.
Okay, I get you. You're changing the mindset. Okay, let's bring. Oh, you want to add to it?
I just wanted to add one or two lines to what she had said. So apart from the focus being on what we should do, what women should do, women have actually done a lot. But it's actually a matter of sometimes turning rhetorics to action. We've done so much capacity building, capacity strengthening, training, whatever you want to call it, workshops. And the media is usually involved in all these trainings. We have gender advocates that are from the media. We have he for she from the media. They are champions in so many areas regarding women's, regarding the issues of empowerment, gender, and so have you. So, but what I think is an issue here now is that mindset change.
So how do we begin to mobilize, people to have that kind of a change of mindset? How do we mobilize people, the society in general?
They have already been mobilized. It's just a matter of what you see. Imagination, visualization, what you see tells you a lot. So what the media shows, what they say, and how probably the choice of words they use when it comes to women or men matters a lot. So as our partners, and I'm not just talking about it as a women thing, media, they have a role to play in how people perceive these discourses that have to do with gender issues, women empowerment, and so have you.
Are you leveraging on the social media, social platform to further amplify the voices of women? How are you going about that?
We've leveraged several platforms, and the only issue is, please, you are our partners. Don't let us speak alone. Come with us, do this talking for us, because sometimes you change your strategy. If I have a cause I'm protecting...
We can't do the talking for you. You have to talk yourself.
If I have a cause I'm promoting, I don't always have to be the one in your face. Someone else can appeal to a better audience, and that could be the media. They can find a way to strategize, and they change this narrative so that people can understand better what the issues are.
Don't worry, as a he for she, I'll do the talking for you. I'll help you to do the talking. But I get worried when I see that when you talk about women being marginalized, most times we focus on politics. She's talked about 35% affirmative. And I ask, in business, how are you pursuing that? In access to finance, how are you pursuing it? In access to other opportunities that are not politics, how are you pursuing it to ensure that the woman, becomes more independent? It's not only in politics. And I mean, if you get the financial muscle that you need and go into politics that way, I bet you can muscle your way through.
Yes, a lot of sensitization and awareness are being created regarding politics, economics, and so have you, agriculture. But your questions were directed towards responses that had to do with political responses, you understand? So probably that's why we are speaking like it's all about politics. But in all these other spheres, we are speaking, we are talking, we're mobilizing women, we're raising awareness and, training a lot of women so that they can know how to access opportunities that are for them, bringing messages to the grassroots. And sometimes also, beyond speaking to women alone, the developers of some of these services, we are also speaking with them so that people, regardless of where they are, and sometimes when you now say people and then the marginalized groups, you find a lot of women there. We also try to make them to make their services or their tools or their what have you to be relatable, easy to understand, because when you come to it, one size does not fit all. So when you use a particular maybe terminology or jargon, a particular language, a particular style and process that has been around for a very long time, those who don't understand it will not be able to access it, and they'll say, this one does not concern me. I'm leaving it to them. It doesn't have anything to do with me. So it's not about producing very new, what will I call it now, approaches to doing things. Not about bringing the same old ways of doing things, but about adapting it to the realities of today. Speaking to various people. For instance, Women Trust Fund, Nigerian Women's Trust Fund, and their inclusive governance program, they are also promoting, women's access to all these services that can help them to be empowered. And inclusion now means you are talking to that person who is illiterate, who is literate, who probably has a disability of some sort, or probably where they are, they don't have a network, they have network issues, and so on and so on and so. So all these things have to really, really be considered when you are deploying a program and you want other people who are left behind, and in this case, women, to be able to participate or make use of it.
These days, women are not left behind because we see women being head of banks, CEOs, and all that. Now they are so common. Even head of big organizations, we have women there. So I think the narrative actually is changing. Maybe it's not changing enough as fast as what you desire. So are you thinking, or you believe that there should be policies in place, to further, promote the rights of women?
Oh yes, absolutely. That's one of the reasons, just say yes. I agree to everything that she said. There's room for improvement, right? But the thing is to be deliberate about the improvement that we want to see. There are different facets of life, like you've accurately mentioned, that should be on the table, but everything is being discussed. When you want to mirror the 35% affirmative, right, it's to say that it's not just for political participation. It's to say that even in your employment processes, you're employing people to do work. Can you just be deliberate enough to ensure that you also, women or young women are applying for the positions as well? Do you see what I mean? That's really what it is. If it is that you're giving loans and investments in different parastatals and agencies who give out loans, can you please ensure that the businesses that are applying to collect these loans have women as well as part of it? So you're very right. Policy is always a great deal. In Nigeria, we're always having so many policies. We just need to be encouraged to intentionally pass them. But imagine if it is that we had really passed this 35% affirmation and we now task parastatals, organizations, media organizations, and we come to you and say, if you're going to interview somebody like the previous interview you had of the Ministry of Agriculture, ensure that you come with a woman, not just a man. Imagine if you just did that little change. So there's an identification that's going to happen here. People will identify themselves in who they see in the man and who they see in the woman as well. And inclusion, as she said, is very, very important. People with disability is actually because they're members of our society. That's the whole inclusion, if it is that we ensure all of this. But policies are papers. Policies are documents that we come together, look at a problem, we evaluate it, and we look for solutions. But we have to be intentional about, applying those policies. So you're very right on that point, sir.
Do you think men are actually, supporting, women empowerment? I mean, and promoting probably gender equality? I mean, from your experience, do you think men are trying?
From my experience, I will speak from a privileged thinking and background because I have a fantastic father, a fantastic man in my life who is my dad, who ensured that my mom, his wife, right, went from secondary school education to a PhD holder. All of us, his daughters, were like flyers, and that's how he educated us. So I can come and say, yes, it's happening everywhere because I have one lens, and that's my dad, right? And it may not be fair to, reciprocate this across because every other person has a different experience. Having said that, I've also associated with a lot of men who are very key in ensuring that women are uplifted. Like, I like the way she talked about that empowerment word being bastardized, but we still have to use it anyway because it's a word that we have to still try to push. But a lot more men are coming around to the idea. But again, let's look at the social norms. That has to change quite a lot. There's some men who do not probably clearly understand what the benefit should be. I don't have a problem in selling the benefit to the man to see, look at where it is going to get all of us. It's not about a tic-tac battle thing. It's an inclusive measure for all of us to see ourselves from point A, like we keep, well, I think we can all agree we're seeing room for improvement from point A to point B. That's what I did. But I think, again, going back to how we're re-educating our children in schools, the institutions, what are we telling our boys? How are we raising the boys now, the young men now? What are they thinking? Because I have the ideology that even if you're raising young women and girls to think differently, and you're not re-educating the boys, they're going to see go out there and meet with the same boys who you have not re-educated, right? So it's an inclusive work. So just to summarize and answer, I do believe there are a lot of men, but there might be less than 10% of them. Again, there's room for improvement. And I believe that, you know, once men really understand it and come on board it will take off like a rocket.
All right. Anwale, thank you very much. And I think we have contributions coming in from the viewers. Before I get to Neka again, Chikezie from Warri, Delta State says, women in recent times are increasingly being empowered and have more opportunities to achieve their ambitions. They are now well represented in education and leadership roles, making significant strides in various fields. And from Victor Obi from Owerri, my work is focused on gender reconstruction, whereby the social constructs that limit women are communicated and reconstructed through education to be able to be part of decision making. I'm sure Demola has some of his own, or you don't?
No, I don't have one
all right.
yet.
Now, I was going to ask, in line with the first contribution that I raised, you see, I know that I had asked earlier if we are doing enough with what we have, but now some people argue, like the first person, that, look, women are already doing great. Are there metrics for measuring? We do a lot of talking, but we don't follow through. Are there metrics to gauge the progress that are being made, maybe on a year-to-year basis, maybe on a month-to-month basis? There are areas that are exclusively women. There are areas where women are dominant. Nobody speaks about all of those. So is it really as bad as we portray it?
Well, it's an interesting question, which I like the word he used. He talked about there are some gains. Women are, you know, increasingly, do you understand? And I mentioned something like that we're having some wins, which we should celebrate. However, it's referencing where we came from and where we're headed, meaning that there is some improvement. There is a lot of improvement. But in terms of how do we gauge it, that is where the 35% affirmative action, which she has mentioned.
Which is just in politics, by the way, right?
Not necessarily
in governance.
In politics. That is the benchmark of representation expected from women, women's representation. If you go to the Constitution, you will see that it talks about gender equality, right? But then, if we're not even able to achieve 50-50, we are saying, can we even reach 35%? As you are aware, the Nigerian Women Trust Fund led a coalition that sued about the implementation of the 35% affirmative action, and the Federal High Court in Abuja granted an implementation. They granted the court order for the 35% to be implemented across board. However, and that is since April 2022. However, that 35% is still not being implemented. Surprisingly, again, there is even a global benchmark of about 20-22%. Nigeria, as we speak, the giant of Africa, everybody looks up to Nigeria like we are achievers. We've not even been able to achieve 20% or 22% of this affirmative action at the federal level. But in some states are really doing a lot to exceed that, such as Ekiti State and Kaduna State. But now, for the 35% affirmative action, Nigeria has signed so many conventions, internationally, regionally, and what have you. But then, it's not being implemented. It's not being implemented. So there is a need for us to follow up with this 35% affirmative action using the gender policy. It has already been revised from 2021 now, 2026.
Actually, implementation is actually some major problem.
It's the major problem
in this country. Okay, let me just, some women want to find out, how you have been able to overcome, your your challenges or obstacles in your journey towards empowerment. Probably you can share with, some of our viewers, women that are watching, so that they can learn from your experience. How have you been able to overcome the obstacles in your, journey towards empowerment?
Well, let's say I'm overcoming. I've not overcome because, like they say, new levels, new issues.
New challenges.
Yeah, so thank you for that. But it's a daily climb. I'm not going to sit here and say that it doesn't happen every day, because like I said, the way we're raised, I believe that we're raised to see barriers, challenges and all of that. And in the environment that we're living, you have to sort of do more. But for me personally, as Angoli, I'm a Christian, so that's inevitable. However, the confidence that got built in me from my parents, my mom and my dad, and seeing how my dad always supports my mom and all the conversation they have was good. The education and intelligence is something that I'm very, very big on. I'm very big on education, very big on intelligence, very big on, schooling yourself, very big on raising yourself internally, your self-esteem, and really understanding why you're here. Because the main purpose is why you're here. I love the way he pointed that question about just politics. There are different areas of life that all women are called to. And the women who are called, who just want to stay at home and look after their family, it's a beautiful, beautiful leadership experience, because you're raising generations of people as well. That's very, very okay. But look at what you want to do and take a decision and put in your best into it. Study about it, research about it, ask about it, be the best that you can be in your field, and promote yourself over it. You will get obstacles, even if you read, even if you go to Harvard and come back, you still get obstacles.
Let's take perhaps the last minute that we have to get to Nneka. If you are looking at a Nigerian girl right now, with regards to all that we have said, what would be your advice to that young Nigerian girl this morning?
I will advise her to keep being optimistic, to keep improving on herself, but to do so while, learning about the environment around her, and to be able to understand the environment and then adapt her messages to the audiences that are around her, because these issues about empowerment, these issues about gender parity, it's an issue of buy-in. How am I communicating to the next person for them to understand me? Nigeria is too diverse, too many cultures, too many different religions, ethnicities and so on. So one size doesn't fit all. I won't advise her to think out of the blue and imagine she's in another country. I know so many of the courses we are promoting are foreign courses. But when we localize it and it appeals to the particular area where we are probably selling or advocating our messages and bring it to the local level, I believe a lot of people will listen, understand you, and you can work together to be able to achieve your goals.
Work together is the key word here. Work together to achieve your goals, and a fine place to leave this conversation. Nneka Acholonu Ebuna, Program Coordinator, Let's Help Humanitarian Foundation. It's been a pleasure having you on Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you very much.
Let me also thank Angole Aniebo, development professional, gender specialist, and humanitarian advocate. We thank you very much for your perspectives on Good Morning Nigeria. So that's the show. Good Morning Nigeria returns same time next week. I'll be here, and I will see you again then. I'm Victor Azo.
And I'm Ademola Adeye. Do have a wonderful day.